as I conclude my 4-part message on fit for purpose. And I'm focusing today on work. Normally at this time, I will preach a Christmas message. But this year, I elected not to do that at this time because the whole of next year, I'm going to preach on Jesus. And we will touch on so many aspects of Jesus, his life, his incarnation, and all of that. And so we're going to explore who Jesus was and why we believe he's God and all of that, and his death and his resurrection and the life that he's living in us and through us, and his power and his glory and his beauty and all of that. Almost everything you want to know about Jesus, we're going to deal with it next year. So I thought, since I'm going to teach on Jesus next year, I wouldn't teach on a Christmas message at this time, and I hope that's understandable. But fit for purpose, this is part number 4. My subtitle is Work. Work. And we're going to look at the role work plays in fulfilling our purpose in life. When we say something is fit for purpose, it means that it is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. When we say our lives are fit for purpose, it means that our lives are fulfilling the purpose for which we were created. So, what does work have to do in that equation? And we're going to look at Jesus. I'm going to focus on 2 passages during this discussion. And we're going to look at Jesus' attitude towards work. The first one is in John's Gospel, chapter 9, and verses 1 to 4. John's Gospel, chapter 9, verses 1 to 4. And it reads, "Now as Jesus passed by, he saw a man who was blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, 'Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?' Jesus answered, 'Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. I must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. The night is coming when no one can work.'" There are many lessons we can learn from this interaction between Jesus and his disciples. They meet a blind man. The disciples ask a question based on their understanding of why bad things happen to people. They said, "Lord, why is this man blind? Did he sin? Or did his parents sin?" And the passage actually says that the man had been blind from birth, so it couldn't be that he sinned. But they believe that when bad things happen to people, it means that somebody did something very bad. And Jesus goes ahead to explain and deal with it. So I'm not going to really deal with all the issues about why people suffer and why bad things happen to people. I will limit myself to the concept of work as it is shown in this passage. And in this short passage, in verses 3 and 4, Jesus uses the word work 4 times. 4 times. Once in verse 3 and 3 times in verse 4. And he uses the word work in different ways 4 times. And as I've said many times, when you read the Bible and you see one word repeated in a short space of time, you need to pay attention to it because it shows emphasis. Emphasis. It means this is something God wants you to pay attention to. You have to train your microscope on it and pay attention to it. So that's what we're going to do. The word work is used. In the Greek, it is ergon. But it is used in different forms in this passage, but the root word is the same, ergon. It means a deed, an act, or labor. So Jesus is talking about work. Work. And so focus on that Jesus teaches us about work. First, Jesus teaches us that my work must fit into what God is doing on earth. My work must fit into what God is doing on earth. Jesus says, I must work the works of God. I must work the works of God. In other words, I work, but my work is not really my work. My work is the work of God. I must work the works of God. My work must not be separated from the works of God. That's what Jesus says. If I'm going to work, if I'm going to be fit for purpose and work, my work must fit into the works of God, into what God is doing on the earth. And that is critical. So think about it. Think about the work that you do. And all of us here do one work or the other. I am doing my work now at the moment, whilst you are just benefiting from my work. But after church, you go and do your work. And some of you will go and work as fashion designers, and you're going to work as medical officers, and you're going to work as educators or teachers, and you're going to work as engineers and architects and so on and so forth. Everybody does some work. Now, in a sense, you can look at my work and say, yeah, pastor is a pastor. His work is the work of God. Yeah, and that's true. But your work also is the work of God. Whatever you're doing, it is the work of God. So if you are a fashion designer, you ask yourself, in what way am I using fashion to express beauty that glorifies God? So that when I'm doing fashion designing, I am mindful I am doing the work of God. I'm not just designing clothes. I am doing the work of God. I'm clothing people. I'm bringing dignity to people. I'm bringing decency to the world. I'm bringing beauty and creativity to the world. If I am a carpenter, I am helping to solve people's problems. I'm making people live a good life. If I'm an educator, I'm bringing knowledge. I'm helping people to appreciate God's creation and to live in the world that God has created them to live in. Each one of us, whether you're a builder, you're an engineer, each one of us is doing a work. But that work must not just be work by itself, it must fit into the work of God. So there has to be a way in which we think about what we are doing as fitting the work of God. And of course, there are sometimes you look at your work and you ask yourself, is this work I'm doing serving the work of God, or it's actually undermining the work of God? And if you find that you're doing, for example, you're a fashion designer, and you can use fashion to do the work of God, you can also use fashion to undermine the work of God. If somebody brings you a design and you know that by the time you finish sewing this cloth or this clothing, whose main purpose is to clothe people. That's what we call it, clothing. It's to clothe people. To clothe people means to cover people. And by the time you finish, there is no covering. Then you have to ask yourself, is my work promoting the work of God? Of course. At a certain point, you see that sometimes what we do, what the work we are doing, is undermining the work of God. So if I'm teaching and I'm teaching and I'm misinforming people, then I'm not doing the work of God. If I'm supposed to bring justice and I'm promoting injustice, I'm not doing the work of God. I'm working, but my work is not the work of God. year of praying. Are you saving the world? Are you casting out all the demons